sure as we have his European final.
Well, now to that Wimbledon final with Carlos Alcaraz defeating Novak Djokovic 6-2, 6-2, 7-6. So that's 4 Grand Slam finals to Wimbledon plus the French and US Opens and 4 titles. How many more to come?
I will try to be going. I will try to make more finals to win those finals. I will say that the final is not about playing, it's about winning. So that's what I remind myself all the time.
Meanwhile, Britons Alfie Hewitt has created a career Grand Slam by winning the Wimbledon wheelchair singles final and then defending the doubles title. He said yesterday it was the best day of his life. And after winning the Scottish Open by just 1 shot, Robert McIntyre, the Scot himself, declared that this title was the one he really wanted. And he has 2 PGA Tour titles. His win came just 6 weeks after taking the Canadian Open with his father, Dougie, on the go. On BBC
12 months ago, a bloke breaks down. Never see him again. 4 months ago, just vanishes into thin air.
You don't know what's happening here. A strange crime mystery in the Australian Alps.
People keep telling me how easy it is to disappear. People are missing. I think it's this town's karma.
I see things that I can't explain. They're warnings. Pine country.
Hey! Hey, who's out there?
Watch on BBC iPlayer.
28 minutes to 7. You are listening to Today on News with Justin Webb. Good to be with you and have your company. Let's get a summary of the news from Caroline Nichols.
President Biden has called for an end to political violence after a gunman targeted Donald Trump's rally on Saturday night. In a televised address from the Oval Office, Mr. Biden said politics should not be allowed to become a battleground or a killing field. Mr. Trump has arrived in Milwaukee for the Republican National Convention, which will confirm him as the party's presidential candidate. The FBI said the suspected gunman, 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks, appears to have acted alone. The King has sent his heartfelt sympathy to the England men's football team after they lost a second successive European Championship final. Gareth Southgate's side will be 2-1 by Spain at Berlin last night, extending the 58-year quest to bring a major trophy home. In his message, the King urged them to hold their heads high, adding that reaching the final was a great achievement in itself. Hamas officials say at least 15 people were killed yesterday in an Israeli strike on a school in central Gaza, fifth such attack in 8 days. Israel said its Air Force started a number of what it called terrorists operating in the area of the UN-run school. Britain's Foreign Secretary David Lammy is visiting the region for talks with Israeli and Palestinian leaders. He says he'll push for an immediate ceasefire and release of hostages. Police will start digging at a farm in Hertfordshire this morning to search for the body of a woman who was killed more than 50 years ago. Miriam Mackay was kidnapped in London in 1969 after she was mistaken for the wife of the media mogul Rupert Murdoch. One of the kidnappers recently revealed the location of her remains on a farm near Bishop Stortford, where she'd been held hostage. The King and Queen are beginning a 2-day visit to the Channel Islands. Buckingham Palace has confirmed the royal couple will visit Australia and Samoa in the autumn. However, doctors have advised against extending the tour to New Zealand because of the King's cancer treatment.
Thank you. It is just about 25 to 7. Donald Trump begins his private convention today in Milwaukee, energized and leading a fired-up party, and with questions, of course, still about whether Donald Trump will even make it to the election against Dr. Correspondent Laura, what's Donald Trump been saying in the hours since the attack on him? What indeed is he saying to his party supporters as they head?
Well, Donald Trump is in very good spirits, despite that assassination attempt on him on Saturday. He's already given this interview to the US newspaper, in which he has said that he plans for his big speech, which will happen later this week. We know that there are but he plans to focus on youth rather than President Biden's policies. And so it's interesting because that is what President Biden has put it as well. He, as we know from his address to the nation, wants to take down the temperature of Donald Trump says he wants to do it. So I think there'll be huge scrutiny both and effectively return to campaigning this week to see if they do that.
And Nikki Haley, Trump's great opponent, won the fight, now scheduled to speak, which tells us something.
The previously not been invited to address the convention, but following that assassination attempt, she is now going to be there. She had said last week, I think it was, that she is still going to vote for the wishes of the rest. And I imagine that what happened in Western Pennsylvania has changed.
Yeah, and just to talk about Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania is a swing state, one of the 6 or 7 states that is genuinely at variance between Trump and Biden. One assumes now that Trump supporters in Pennsylvania will now turn out in the election, and that the risk for Biden is that state is lost.
Well, I think that Donald Trump supporters are always hugely galvanising. I went to a vigil earlier today by Donald Trump supporters, and they said if we weren't going to turn out before, we're definitely going to turn out now. And I think there is a possibility that Pennsylvania could have a huge impact on election day. It basically guarantees that everyone that is a Donald Trump supporter in Pennsylvania will definitely be a Donald Trump voter in November, but the race is still pretty static between both President Biden and Donald Trump. And up until the Saturday, we were talking about President Biden's fortunes. Was he going to still be the Democratic Party's candidate? Now that's completely at a standstill, and we're talking about Donald Trump. So who knows where we'll be in another week?
Good point. Thank you.
23 minutes to 7. A new Labour government led by a football fan, but football hasn't come home. Prime Minister was watching in Germany alongside the new Culture Secretary Lisa Nandy, who we'll talk to a bit later on in the programme. Henry Zeffman, our chief political correspondent, is here. It's not come home.
You don't need me to tell you that. I mean, Keir Starmer is legitimately a football fan. It's often moments like this, Prime Minister's affect football fan. Keir Starmer genuinely is, and I'm sure there were moments yesterday sitting in his VIP seats in Berlin where he thought his job was pretty cool. I'm sure especially so when Cole Palmer equalised. Alas, not to be. Keir Starmer is back in the UK, and the moment people dreamed of Sir Gareth Southgate and Sir Harry Kane arriving at Downing Street to shake Keir Starmer's hand, not quite happening. He tweeted last night that he promised you made your country proud, but congratulations to him.
Yes, and I suppose at the same time, which is referred to what we'll talk about on the programme today, he's also had to get scripts of what's happening across in terms of US politics and what to be said at this time with those remarkable scenes.
That's right. Keir Starmer spoke to Donald Trump yesterday before he arrived in the Senate. He condemned the violence, expressed his condolences for the victims and their families. He wished the president and those injured a quick recovery. Worth noting, that's the first time that Keir Starmer and Donald Trump have ever spoken. But clearly it's plausible that come January they could be speaking much more. And this is actually something that the Labour Party is carrying sometime, possibly to take by the second Trump president. So before they got into government, David Lammy, the new Foreign Secretary, previously the Shadow Foreign Secretary, has been doing lots of work on this. That's interesting because David Lammy, back in 2018, back when he was a backbench Labour MP, called Donald Trump a woman-hating, neo-Nazi sympathiser, sociopath, a profound threat to the international order. Another point he accused Donald Trump of promoting racism, secondly labelled him a fascist. But David Lammy has been working very hard to forge good relations with Donald Trump and his team.
We'll have to leave it there at the moment, but thank you for reminding us. Henry Zeffman.
27 is the time, and David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, is in Israel at the moment. The last turn of Israel to Jerusalem to Nick Beaker, correspondent. Doing what? Nick saying what?
Yeah, morning, Justin. Well, Mr. Lammy says he's pushing for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and return of hostages. We know that yesterday he met some of the hostages' families with links to the UK, as well as Israeli and Palestinian leaders. More meetings today, including with the Israeli Foreign Minister. We all know that the war in Gaza is a divisive issue for Labour, and criticism of its response, especially in the early days, of course, this fall in support in the election victory, especially among Muslim voters. So the new government, Mr. Lammy, has a series of key decisions to make. First of all, they need to announce their position. The International Criminal Court's jurisdiction over this request to issue an arrest warrant for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Then there's the question of selling arms to Israel. Also, whether the UK will resume funding UNRWA, the UN agency which assists Palestinian refugees, notably in Gaza. And of course, Labour has promised that it will recognise a Palestinian state, but has not said when that will be. And Mr. Lamy arrived in the Middle East on what was another bloody weekend just in Hamas-run health authorities saying that 140 people killed, including 90 Palestinians in what was a huge strike in the supposedly safe zone in the southern city of Khan Yunis. And crucially, Israel still hasn't said whether or not it got the main target there.
Yes, so this is one of the masterminds of the October the 7th attack, which it wanted to kill, but it's not yet sure that it has.
Yes, this is Mohammed Deif. He is the head of Hamas's military wing. The Israelis have had him as a top target for decades now. They say he's responsible for hundreds of operations that have injured and killed Israeli citizens and soldiers, and that he is one of the key masterminds of October the 7th. We know that, well, according to the Israelis, another senior Hamas figure was killed in these series of airstrikes. And interestingly, David Lammy is saying one of the things he's talking to the Israelis about today is to make sure the war's carried out in accordance with international law. And this question of proportionality is hugely important because the Hamas-run health ministry is saying that half of the 90 people who died were killed, were women and children. The Israeli military hasn't directly responded to that claim, but they have accused the Hamas top commanders of, in their words, cynically hiding among civilians.
Big injuries.
18 minutes to 7. Front pages of the papers. Sometimes we have a chance to go in, but there's two stories dominating today. Trump, in his words, since that assassination has happened. Let's just look at the football pictures and the headlines. On the front of the Daily Mail, unbearable tension, a Wonderbob football's non-coming hurricane, walking past the trophy in Berlin last night. Very stark on the front page of the Daily Telegraph, with just the score 2-1 to Spain and head in hands from Jude Bellingham. Daily Express says dream is over, but 3 Lions, you did us proud. On the front of the Daily Mail, shattered. Wait goes on for 3 Lions as Spain finish final. Amazing racing. An amazing collective air rush on the front of the Times, which is saying end of the dream.
Yeah, Donald Trump and the immediate future of the American political process on the front pages of most of the papers. US reels after assassinations to Trump. That is the take on the Guardian. Trump won't win is the take on the Daily Mail. Donald Trump himself did an interview to the Washington Examiner. Trump, I'm not supposed to be here, is their headline. An interesting take on the front page of the Financial Times points out that most people would believe at the moment that the mood on both sides of the political aisle in America does not lend itself to cool heads or calm nerves, but Democrats and Republicans using fear to motivate their bases during the course of his campaign. But Peter Spiegel points out on the front page of the FT that such was the state of America in the late 60s and early 70s, with a huge amount of pragmatic assassinations, but it was in retrospect astonishing but still true that Peter Spiegel says the country did not tear itself apart. The same thing might happen this time, but in other words, the forces of political moderation and social moderation take control.
It's just around 7:15. One NHS trust's waiting times for children's autism assessments has increased from 14 months to 38. This bleak reality is highlighted in a new report out today saying that the NHS is struggling to meet the rapidly rising demand and complex and acute care needs among children and young people. Sir Julian Hartley, Chief Executive of NHS Performance, is the membership organisation for NHS Trusts in England and is behind this report, joins me now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Why is there that jump? Why can things not return to the way they were pre-pandemic?
Well, we've seen trusts in the survey reporting, in fact 86% of them saying the waiting times for initial assessments have increased compared to pre-pandemic, and the demand for children and young people services has increased significantly. And I think we all know just what huge impact the pandemic years had on children and young people, and that's certainly manifested itself in relation to both physical and mental health. And even before the pandemic, waiting times were too long. So I think we're dealing now with a really stark reality of a scaling challenge that needs addressing. And I think that also, I just think it's more focus on children and local services in national policy, with 90% of respondents saying it hasn't been considered a high enough priority in national policy. So we're very, very keen to see a real focus placed on this and real effort put into addressing those challenges, given the unacceptable levels of weight that many young children are facing.
What do you need to unlock this?
Well, I think it's encouraging to see that the new government have talked about their Child Health Action Plan, which is about cutting waiting lists. So there's already some good work going on in 3 different trusts who are pooling resources to try to do more operations and diagnostic tests for children. We're also seeing a lot of mental health and community trusts looking at how they change and redesign pathways for autism or ADHD assessments to try and get those further down. But I think we do need to see that Child Health Action Plan put into place with focus on mental health support in schools, mental health hubs in every community, because it's so important to boost preventative mental health. It's really important to make sure health and wellbeing for children and young people is centre stage in terms of public policy and the new government's plans. And also the other factor the Prime Minister's mentioned many times is about dentistry and improving dentistry, given the number of children that come and look at hospital with dental problems. So there's a whole range of things, but there's some good things that are going on in the interest at the moment, but there's no doubt it has to be a priority for the new government in terms of a real focus and a real energy to do it.
What would you do? What would you advise in these companies? It's very difficult. What are you meant to do practically as a parent right now?
Well, I think that it's important that contact is maintained between the provider of the service if people are dissatisfied or find real problems, patient provides liaison services are there across the service, trying to make sure that that communication is improved. That's an area, of course, where you can imagine parents and families get incredibly frustrated given the length of waits that some are experiencing. So it is vital that we get to focus on this and we start to see improvements and focusing on the things that I described, because it's not just about the actual treatment and care, it's also about the longer term prevention, because it's likely we're going to see continuing rises and we're going to need to see demand being met. And we really do need to see, I think, a step change in the extent of...
We'll have to leave it there for now, but Sir Julian, Chief Executive of NHS Providers.
10 to 7 is the time. There's Steve Anger among many Republicans of what they say is a double standard in US politics. When Donald Trump says something inflammatory, he's accused of trying to mend democracy, but when the man himself is demonized, compared as he has been to Hitler, the media rather look away. And those comparisons lead directly to violence against him of the kind seen on Saturday night. That at least is the allegation. I've been talking to the Republican Congressman Ken Rothman, who chairs the National Security Subcommittee of the House of Representatives, about the wider reasons why he thinks this happened.
I think it is the inflammatory rhetoric, both from the left-wing politicians in the United States and even more the left-wing media. They have said of Donald Trump to be some sort of boogeyman, a fascist, a dictator. And as a result, I think there is hatred for him beyond the normal hatred the left has for the Republican. It's unlike the hatred towards a George Bush or a Bob Dole. It's just way out of whack. I attribute to the rhetoric, calling him almost a Hitler, calling him a dictator, saying, well, the end of democracy in America. There is no evidence for this, and it's ridiculous because President Trump was already president for 4 years. We know exactly what type of president he was. But they have ginned up this hatred.
What do you say to those on the left who say, well, hold on a second, that may be true, but Donald Trump himself has also engaged in rhetoric that he shouldn't have done? For instance, when Nancy Pelosi, senior Democratic politician's husband, was attacked by a man with a hammer, Donald Trump seemed to make light of it, and in retrospect, shouldn't have.
Oh, I know he should have made light of it, but I don't think Donald Trump engaged in rhetoric so out of line would result in an assassination attempt.
And you think there is a real difference then between the kind of demonization there is of him and the language that he uses?
I think Donald Trump sometimes, in an effort at humor, says things that a normal politician would not say. We all understand that. But Donald Trump does not seriously say, for example, if Joe Biden would be reelected, will be end of democracy in the United States. I don't think Donald Trump would say such a thing. Donald Trump does not say Joe Biden is a dictator or will become a dictator. I think, it's a matter of degree, and the matter of degree is much greater from the left and the press of the left. Normally when the press speaks, you think they have a given degree of impartiality, and there's not impartiality in the press in America. The press is overwhelmingly left-wing, except for a few organs. But the basic TV, the basic radio, the basic what we have left of newspapers is all left-wing in America. And it's not only left-wing, it is inflammatory, unnecessarily inflammatory. So if a young person, a 20-year-old, would read this sort of thing, it doesn't surprise me that he may feel, oh my goodness, I better shoot Donald Trump. The next Adolf Hitler is supposed to take over the United States. It's got that out of line.
Final thought about the Secret Service and their role in all of this. They have been considerably criticized. There'll obviously be inquiries. Your initial view?
Yeah, I don't know why somebody was not in the building. When I was talking to people tonight at the convention, nobody could understand how there were buildings within 100 yards of Donald Trump, and nobody was patrolling the buildings or paying attention to what was going on. I also think that the current director of the Secret Service is what we'd say in the United States, unnecessarily woke. Bush spends a great deal of time trying to get as many women, for example, in the Secret Service as possible, rather than spending her time making sure they do a good job.
Glenn Grofman, Chair of the National Security Board of Foreign Affairs Subcommittee of the House of Representatives. Thank you very much.
7 minutes to 7. 100 years ago, hard scientist Arthur Hopkins launched a remarkable project. He began collecting samples of wheat from all over the globe. Now, the shy pioneer, as has been described, said in terms of his work, it was described as ahead of its time, is being used to create varieties that could help feed the Earth's swelling population after a UK-Chinese collaboration that sequenced the DNA of all of the 827 kinds of wheat assembled by Hopkins that have been nurtured at the John Innes Centre in Norwich for the past century. Simon Griffiths is a geneticist at the centre and one of the project's leaders and joins us now. Good morning.
Hi, Emma.
How and why did Arthur Hopkins do this?
Well, he was interested in you've got to remember at that time, people didn't know that much about wheat, and he wanted to understand it better. And he could see that wheat, as it had existed for 10,000 years since it was domesticated, was being changed by modern plant breeding. And he could see that was going to displace these old heritage types of wheat. And he sent letters around the British Empire and said, please collect the types of wheat that people are eating now, because I want to survey it before it goes.
It's a very interesting project, and I imagine to be involved with it, I have no idea about it. And I suppose, what is the use of his research today? How will it affect people's lives?
The use is the fact that he predicted things correctly, and modern breeding did produce what they call it waterway, where although they've done a very, very good job of producing new varieties of wheat, they only used a small number of the landrakes, as they call them, the heritage wheats that people grew at that time. And he didn't catch all the variation. So that variation is kind of left behind in these collections, which are now gene banks, and they contain many useful traits for disease resistance, yield, stress resistance. So it's a way of finding those traits which will apply.
And how will that then be applied? How can that be used in production?
Well, we work with breeders, for instance, commercial breeders in the UK who produce new varieties of wheat. and institutions around the world doing the same. And they cross these old cultivars, these land races, with modern wheat. And because we've sequenced it, they can specifically select the genes controlling these important traits, and they kind of bring them back to life from 100 years ago.
Wow, that's incredible.
It is.
And what I mean, in terms of, I said he was described as a shy pioneer, but it's an interesting way that he found this actually through war service.
That's right. So he was a city boy. A colleague of mine, Robert Kobner, did research into a really nice archive. We got a book of his letters and his life. And yeah, after the Second World War, he stayed on to look after the ponies in the trenches, and he found an interest in agriculture. And that's why he went on to the University of Cambridge, assembled this collection through the links that you mentioned, and that then became the Plant Breeding Institute, and then the John Innes Centre through historical moves of research.
And just in terms of what this can do, is it going to have the impact globally?
Absolutely. So wheat's a global crop. It's 20% of the calories that we eat, and everybody can benefit from this. We don't want to overclaim it. It's always a process to produce varieties. It takes a breeder in this country 12 years to produce a variety, but they are doing that now. They're taking the Watkins lines and
using those lines.
Crossing and selecting everything else.
Simon Griffiths, a geneticist at the centre. Thank you.
3 minutes to 7 to the weather.